Everyone, my name is Santosh Gupta, and in this video I'm going to cover programming in C++, specifically functions, classes, objects, and the public and private sections of each class. The IDE I'm using is Microsoft Visual Basic, and this program, it asks the user for the values of 4 resistors, and then it calculates the total resistance in series and in parallel for those resistors. So I'm going to execute the program, and then I'm going to explain the code. So I compile by going to build solution, and then I execute by going to debug, start without debugging. And it asks me the values for 4 resistors, and then it calculates the total resistance if those resistors were in series and in parallel. These 4 lines over here, they correspond to these 4 lines. Cout is used to output value onto the executable. Cin is used to take input from the executable and assign them to variables in the program. This section over here, it is used to calculate the total resistance of the series and parallel circuits. Before I can explain this, I have to explain using functions in a program. A function is usually used to carry out a specific task in the program. So programs are composed of many functions. Let me give you an example of this particular function called calc. It is used to calculate the total resistance of the resistors if those resistors were in series. And functions, they can be organized using classes. In this program, I have 2 classes, series and parallel. The parallel class is used to group functions which are used to calculate the total resistance of the series if those resistors were in parallel. And to call a function in that class, we have to use something called an object. I declared both objects here. I declared an object by typing out the name of the series, and then what I want to use to what I want to name the object. In this case, I named my objects sir and par. And to access a particular function using a object, I type the name of the object, I use a period separator, and then I type in the name of the function. And in this case, I am calling the function called setRes, which is in the series class, and I am passing 4 parameters onto that function. The parameters are R1, R2, R3, R4, the values of the 4 resistors. So let's go to setRes in our series class, and what this function does, it assigns values to the private variables inside this class. And before I can explain this program any further, I have to explain the public and private sections of each class. So anything in the public section can be accessed outside the class, but anything inside the private section, it cannot be accessed outside the class. And typically what the purpose of this is to keep the variables in each class private. It is generally bad programming practices to keep the variables public. It makes the program more prone to error. So we keep the variables private. And I know what you're thinking. If the variables are private, how can they be useful outside the class? Well, the variables are private, but we can use public function to write and read information to and from these private variables. And that's exactly what these functions do. This function over here, it assigns values of the resistors to the private variables. This function over here, it calculates the total resistance using these private variables, and also assigns the answer, the variable answer, to this private variable answer. And then this function, it reads data from this private variable, and it returns it to the main program. So that function is called on over here, ser.getCalc. And so when this function is called, it reads information from this answer variable and returns it. And so these two lines, they correspond to these two lines over here, these two output lines. The total resistance is in series, the total resistance is in series, and then the value, in this case 22, of our calculation. And that is it for this program. I'm going to finish this video by summarizing all of the concepts I covered. Programs are composed of many functions. Those functions can be organized using classes, and to access a particular function from a class, we use an object. And classes can have a public and a private section. Typically we keep the variables in the private sections, so to prevent errors from occurring within the program. And that is it for this video. Thank you for watching, everyone.